And in our first story, lives of patients in two key hospitals at Riamwase in the Setre South district of the Ashanti region are on the line. And this is due to what hospital administrators describe as persistent erratic power supply there. Authorities say they currently have been compelled in some instances to resort to headlamps for major operations. Nana Sensu Mensah, who visited the community, has the rest of the story.
At the time of our visit, supply was yet to be restored after the light had gone off the previous day. Residents appear to be getting used to what is described as a persistent occurrence which they have endured for months. Management and staff of the hospitals are, however, feeling the pinch of a virtually unending situation. Here is Senior Physician Assistant at Salvation Army Hospital, Abigail Mensah Ajay.
We're having a case of anemia that we sent a client to the lab for FBC so that we can just go on with our blood transfusion. And in fact, you can't wait for results because results will not be coming. So clinically, what you think you have to do best for your client, you have to do. So you have to go on and transfuse even with no results because of the outages. So we are pleading that they help us so that at least, even if we are not having the light, plants and other things, generators, even something that anybody can help us with, can come on and help us. Yes, recently there was a case that they were operating on at the theater, and sadly, power outage, plant is not working. So when it gets to that point, you have to use your normal lamps and lanterns that you have, because the client is at the operating theater. You can't also sit there for the client to expire. So we did the best we can, and God being so good, we were able to save the client.
Administrator at Salvation Army Hospital, Major Stephen Boadu, says the situation is worsened by a faulty backup standby power generator.
Talking about lighting system is very, very, very bad. We have not slept for 24 hours in light. No. The light system here is very, very, very poor, and it's not helping the facility, it's not helping our work, it's not helping everything. Yeah, the standby generator is spoiled, and we are looking for somebody to come and repair it. Right now, as I speak, I've sent someone to Kumasi to go and look for a mechanic who will come and then repair it for us, because the generator is on for 24/7. So that's why it is getting.
For the SDA hospital, whose generator is functional, the challenge is a fuel cost which authorities say is draining already scarce resources. Dr. Michael Addo is medical director.
For the power cuts, it's been on and off. Sometimes in a day, it can go off several times. It goes off, then you switch on your plant, then it comes back on, and you have to off it again. Sometimes it lasts for some few minutes, sometimes hours. Sometimes the whole day you go without power, and we have to invest so much in buying fuel to power the plant. As the plant that we have, fuel in it, we buy over in excess of 1,000 cedis.
Meanwhile, Chief of Staff at the Presidency, Freeman Osei Opare, has presented anti-COVID-19 sanitary materials to the two hospitals. Director of Special Projects, Alex Jedu, makes a commitment to address the power supply challenges.
Yes, I've been told that there's power instability here. So I'll pick it up and I will inform the Chief of Staff accordingly so that something is done about it.
Nana Asensu Mensah reporting.
And instead of piling pressure on government to address their healthcare needs, residents of Kubori in the northeast region took a bold decision to construct a health center for themselves. The community's dream of making quality healthcare easily accessible for residents might, however, not be realized soon. Now, the residents have run out of money to complete the critical project that they need. They are currently appealing to development partners and benevolent organizations to come to their aid. Well, there's more in this report filed by Elias Otanko.
The Kubori community in the Mampurgu Muaduri district of the Northeast region is located more than 200 kilometers from Tamale. It has a functioning health center operating in a building that was donated 30 years ago. But over time, the facility, which also received cases from communities in the North Gonja district, has become dilapidated. It has no beds and emergency supplies, and patients are treated on wooden benches and rubber mats. Emmanuel Wuni manages the facility.
Due to the lack of infrastructure, the structure is not having all the necessary areas where we are supposed to render services. Those that you are seeing there, they should have been found in a place where we call injection room or cannulation room. But because there's no adequate structure for us, we are improvising the space outside there to render some of these services, which at times is not the best. Because some of the procedures are such a way that you have to provide privacy to the client. But due to the lack of space, we don't have any tenant on them to improvise those areas as places where we pass our cannulas or our lines and even administer certain kind of medications out there.
With the population increasing, doctors were unable to treat patients with complicated conditions. As a result, the over 15,000 people, including pregnant women and babies, depending on this facility for their healthcare needs, have been forced to resort to witch doctors to attend to their health problems. After several unsuccessful calls on government to intervene in their situation, the residents decided to take matters into their hands to build a new facility. The initiative was conceived by a group of young graduates, the Kubori Youth for Development, who are driving change and championing development in the community. The residents raised over 200,000 Ghana cedis and built a new facility with an intensive care unit, operation theater, and extensive diagnostic facilities. But soon, contributions towards the project dwindled as they ran out of cash, and now these uncompleted facilities remain unutilized and unequipped. A member of the Kubori Youth for Development, Seidu Mubarak, speaking to Joy News, appealed for help.
It was built by government, that was 1990s. So all the time, because of so many people, the hospital normally become congested. So the community decided to put it upon themselves to come out with an idea that we should try and get a project and add to it so that it will make things easier for the hospital. So we decided to come out and build this thing. It was started by communal labor, contributing on one city by the community people. So we decided to come out with this particular thing. So we are now appealing to government, because as at now we are tired. We don't know how we'll be able to complete this thing. So we are just appealing to government, opinion leaders, NGOs to come out to our aid and help us so that we'll be able to complete this project.
The Kubori Health Center serves over 10,000 people in the vicinity and serves as the major referral point of primary health care for these farming communities. Residents, as well as healthcare providers here, want government to intervene to complete the project and put it to use.
The idea of turning away patients because of the terrain which we find ourselves, humanly, is not possible. The best that we could always do is to probably turn benches to beds to admit people in the yard. At times, we have to look for masks when it becomes critical to put certain clients on a mission to be able to administer treatment. We appeal to well-meaning Ghanaians, benevolent organizations, well-wishers to come to the aid of the good people of Kubori to help them complete this structure, to help render quality health services to the people of Mampuru Madu and those surrounding communities around.
Elias Sutanko for Joy News.
Now, let me ask you a question. How do you measure the distance between you and the next person in observing social distance if you are visually impaired? Difficult, isn't it? But that's exactly the situation some visually impaired persons say they currently face. They cite the social distancing protocol as the most difficult to observe, putting them at greater risk of contracting coronavirus. Chairman of the Governing Board of the National Council on Persons with Disability, Yao Ufori Deborah, revealed this to Joy News after receiving some 100 bags of rice and other items from businessman Ibrahim Mahama.
When the imposition of the restrictions of COVID-19 started, persons with disability throughout the country have been calling on the National Council to make necessary contacts for them to get support because they are at home and they are not able to move out as a result of the social distancing. You know, many of them are jobless. We always find them in the streets, and this time they are not able to come to the streets. So the only way to survive is to get charitable support from those who are well placed in society who can give them. So since then, we have made a lot of contacts, and we have not been so successful. But our brother, Mr. Ibrahim Mahama, and kindly, he has been able to give us this fantastic donation. And for that matter, we are very grateful for Mr. Ibrahim Mahama, who has responded generously to our outcry. So on behalf of all persons with disability who are going to benefit from these items, we say a big thank you to Mr. Ibrahim Mahama, and we are appealing to institutions, charitable organizations, and all those who have to come to the aid of persons with disability who should remain at home.
And that's good news for lecturers and students of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology as it goes viral with all academic work. They can now access for free the KNUST e-learning platform known as Virtual Academic Space. Originally used only by the Institute of Distant Learning, it's been upgraded from 1 functioning feature to 9 with capacity for over 65,000 students. Joy News KNUST correspondent Barkisu Mohammed brings us the update.
At an academic board meeting on Monday, 4, 2020, there was a decision for end-of-semester assessment to be based on students' average score of 3 to 5 written assignments per course. It therefore became incumbent on the university management to make online learning easily accessible. Dr. Ahmed Ejapon is Deputy Director at the Institute of Distance Learning. He says new servers and features were installed to facilitate the transition to the virtual class.
We only had a virtual classroom where we put our materials and do our online teaching and conduct examination and what have you. But when we installed the new servers, our technical team, led by our UITS and the director and the university IT consultant, came together to upgrade the system to add extra features. So now you realize that we have brought the entire university to our virtual space.
The addition of Prempeh II Library to the space comes, perhaps, with even greater excitement. Dr. Henry Kofi Mensah is head of KNUST Department of Human Resource and Organizational Development.
We thought that we can digitize this place where students, wherever they find themselves, will be able to access it with their credentials and take all the books that they need. If you look at, if you go into this space, you will see that almost all the books that we have in the library have been digitized, especially those that have latest edition and have electronic copies.
Meanwhile, lecturers who are unfamiliar with the virtual class platform are undergoing training to enable them access it with ease.
We have set up these computers so that individual lecturers who have problems with teaching online can come here physically, and as you see, the place is spaced out enough so you can record and teach real time here.
Maintain a distance of 25 distance units.
Professor Samuel Saki is a lecturer at the Mechanical Engineering Department and also director at the Technology Consultancy Center. He lauded the system, though he's concerned about network challenges students face.
The systems we have here are very user-friendly. The only challenges that we face sometimes is when you have to write something, then there are difficulties. Sometimes the students can't see very clearly what you are writing. Other times they don't see anything at all. Sometimes the writings become blurred. Other problems that the students face has to do with their own networks at their end.
Replicating this in Ghana has become one difficult task for many universities due to inadequate resources. For KNUST, using online written assignments seems the best authorities can offer now. Whether this favors every student or not, it's a topic for discussion on another day. Reporting for Joy News, Barakisu Mohammed.
Well, KNUST comprehensively going virtual and talking about how virtual we can be. That's what we always do, and we've been doing that since the period of coronavirus. And of course, today we're going to have some virtual interactions. And again, let me just surprise you of what we're going to have. Towards the latter part, we're going to have a great interaction with Akwabwa. We brought you his gospel medley. You did enjoy that. You can get more of his songs, get acquainted with them as we do that interaction. But foremostly, we'll have an interaction with the General Secretary of the governing New Patriotic Party, John Boadu. And look, all the topical issues right here, ask him those critical questions as we find a way to get into his mind as to what currently is in the mind of the New Patriotic Party in relation to issues of registration by the EC, current allegations from the NDC, particularly about collusion with the NIA and all those relevant issues. But we also do know that schools need to reopen. When they have to reopen, how they have to reopen, how they have to conduct teaching and learning is a great subject all of us could have a guess at. But we want to aggregate everybody involved in education right here. And we're going to have NAT representatives, Concerned Teachers Association representatives, and Peter Antipati is going to help us with many of the relevant issues. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, we have to do the newspapers. Israel is on stream. Amavi is also right in the studio. Good morning to the two of you.
Hi there. Good morning. Hi, Izzy.
Lee, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too.
You look really bright.
Yeah, because today I'm outside.
You look Monday, actually.
How was your weekend?
It was good, quiet and restful.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I love that. When you say quiet and restful, it means you went to the beach?
Hey.
Did you observe social distancing?
Who goes to the beach these days, huh?
I stayed at home. Yeah.
Well, you'll be doing the Times and then which one?
And the Finder.
Okay, and the Finder. Okay. So, yeah. Mamavi, you start for us.
So I've got the Daily Graphic newspaper, the Daily Dispatch, and the Daily Statesman newspaper. I want to jump into the Daily Graphic. So straight up, let's check what's on the front page of the paper today, May 18, 2020. Stigmatization, frightening danger. Ghana Health Service commits to ending obstacle. There's a picture of Dr. Da Costa Abuaji, Director of Health Promotion Division at the Ghana Health Service, along with this story. Access Bank supports less privileged. Ghana to have beneficiary ownership register by October. COVID-19 frontline workers appreciated on International Day of Family. Unipass makes progress according to operators. And then in the center spread, so that's how the front page of the paper looks like. It's on your screens now. In the center spread, there's a special feature. Old Fadama demolitions, stubborn slum dwellers or wobbly city authorities with a question mark. It will be good to read. I can imagine, I haven't fully read this, but I can imagine it's just the same old thing. You know, we do it, we allow people to come back, and then we make nothing of it, really. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, Sakumono ICGC organizes blood donation exercise. Instant punishment for nose mask violators in Ashanti region. It's raising lots of questions and commentary as well. People who fail to comply with the directive to wear nose mask in the Ashanti region will be made to undertake instant community service as punishment. The Ashanti Regional Security Council last weekend instructed the police in the region to enforce the directive on the wearing of nose mask, especially on those accessing public areas. Well, we will talk about the question marks to this kind of directive. But let's do the Daily Dispatch, front page of the Dispatch, how the 2020 elections could be held without much difficulty. Turnouts could be lower than 69.3%. According to the Dispatch's analysis. Is NIA helping NPP to rig 2020 elections? NIA answers NDC. Akufo-Addo's promise, 44-year-old Cath maternity ward will be done in 3 years. The last paper for me is the Daily Statesman. Front page, ECNIA exposed more lies of NDC. Abronya DC says the Akufo-Addo projects are real, not ghost projects. 155 million euro ready for Cath maternity block. Akufo-Addo reactivates construction of 44-year-old abandoned health facility. All right, they've got some sports on the back page. Gordon Atram explains why he wasn't successful at Dutch Giants PSV. And then Chelsea set to boost Arsenal's chances of signing Thomas Partey due to, is it Janik swap? Well, those of you who follow the sports will understand. That's it for me for the Daily Statesman.
I've been following the sports, but Charlie, that's one. Well, I know Israel is an Arsenal fan. Israel, aren't you an Arsenal fan?
No, that would be news.
Chelsea? I think you're my brother. You've always behaved as if you don't know me. I think, Israel, please go on with the newspaper. Just read through the headlines and then we'll...
I'm going with the finder. So on the front page, you have abandoned for 44 years. President Akufo-Addo moves to complete 750-bed building for Conference Teaching Hospital. And BOG to bridge budget financing gap with 10 billion cedis. And successful simulation at Tema Port paves way for ICOM's takeoff. And Ghana records $936.4 million trade surplus. Also on the finder and on page 5, 3 die from COVID-19 without any underlying health condition. And 13 new COVID-19 cases in northern regions spark fear. Benchmark value policy has not changed GRA. And then no voluntary testing for COVID-19 now, Dr. Sarkodie. And one other story, no new taxes on power consumption, GRA. I think we should come to that subsequently. It's an interesting story. And then we move to the Ghanaian Times. COVID-19 vaccine must be freely available to all, President Akufo-Addo advocates. Also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times, Ghana's COVID-19 recovery rises to 1,754. The case count stand at 5,735. And people have been asking questions about Ghana's recovery rate. Seems we have had a spike in recent times. Some people are questioning, others are also saying, why are you questioning? And we'll come to that later. 2 suspected armed robbers gunned down, another arrested. Dr. Chambers calls for concerted efforts to combat COVID-19. And then we go to the back page of the Ghanaian Times. Road users advised to obey directives at Tema Motorway. And Tamale COVID-19 Center appeals for PPE. So those are the front pages I have.
All right, so let me go through the 3 papers I have quickly. I have the Daily Guide, has on the front page, Obinim facing arrest. Obinim facing arrest. He has his picture well attached. And then we also do have NDC mosque. We're talking the Daily Guide here. NDC mosque COVID-19 recoveries. It has an attached picture of Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. 1,754 recover from COVID-19. The Electoral Commission exposes NDC. The paper says Muslim leaders bless Supreme Court Judge Justice Tanko. And then we also have on the back page, ex-Kotoko star stranded in Kenya over unpaid bills and His name, as the paper has indicated, is Jackson. Also, his picture is also on the back page. Allow us to play golf. The president of the Ghana Golf Association, Mike Agri, has appealed passionately to government for the early return or resumption of the sport amid the coronavirus pandemic. I guess he seemed to be arguing that in the practical way the game is played, it's more like they observe social distances on the plains. No punishment for a Hertha celebration, and we know that the Bundesliga took off nicely. I watched the games, even though some of the teams I didn't support, but one of the matches I watched was Dortmund. It was beautiful. Haaland was again at his best as the game resumed. Let's go to the Ghanaian Observer. Has on the front page, stop needless attacks on the Electoral Commission, Peace Council. Kufuor revives construction of 44-year-old Kath Maternity Children's Block, and Seth Kwame Boateng on Friday brought us all the updates. It was also live intermittently right here on the channel. A disinfection of airport contract. Aviation Minister sets record straight, and we have all the updates. The recoveries, 1,754 coronavirus, and the current case count of Ghana as we have it. But also on the front page of the Ghanaian Observer is a story which is captioned, the Vice President Baumia surprises his 75-year-old primary teacher and presented him with a tractor. Good one. When your teacher teaches you well, you have to, reward him. That's nature. Let's look at my last paper I'm having. The Bank of Ghana index points to economic contraction, and I would want us to look at this if we can, just in some few minutes if we are able to have the time. The BOJ is also lending 5.5 billion Ghana cedis to government. Stands ready also to lend more, up to 10 billion from its accounts, and Ghana's debt stock has hit 236.1 billion in the first quarter. Right. Lady and gentlemen.
Yes.
Right. What do you want to...
I wanted to talk about the Ashanti Region Police, the action that they are taking to enforce the wearing of nose mask. They say they've done a lot of education in the past weeks, except that, we want everybody to wear the mask, but we know that we're being regulated by a certain instruments, and even though on the face of it, you say that they're doing the right thing, but we're still a democracy, so they can't prescribe any punishment, instant punishment, for citizens of Kumasi if they're not wearing the nose mask. We need the precedent, and I think that if the police think that this is what they need to get everybody wearing the mask and adhering to the rules, then we have to embed it in those regulations to make it law once and for all. But otherwise, they are doing something that is not in our books.
I agree, Member Vian. Last week the health minister at the news conference was talking about the fact that government is contemplating a law like that. But if the law hasn't been drafted and passed yet, I don't know why anybody would want to. Essentially, you're taking the law into your own hands and deciding to do what you want to do. It may be for a good cause, but it is not prescribed by law.
Absolutely.
And I think that Samson had a lot to say on this, Ladi and Yanini, and it's also because we've had precedent or past event of abuse by law enforcement agencies and the personnel that have been well deployed for this period. And it's the reason why in the formative period when we had the lockdown, we ultimately had to see the various security personnel, especially the police and the army, relax their hands on the maintenance of the restrictions and then the lockdown. I think what they need to do is to work within the structure of the various security committees that are located either in the regions, the municipalities, or the district, so that they complement these enforcement that they want to undertake with a lot of public education. Because once the law is not on your side, it becomes an affront to human rights. And ultimately, if you appeal to people, they will see reason other than just going the way they have done so far, which I think is not the best way for them.
Well, it's illegal. That's it.
Yeah.
In plain legal language, yes, it is illegal.
Yeah. All right. I think, Izzy, there was a story. Was it in the Finder you wanted to highlight?
Yes, it's the Finder. So it has to do with no new taxes on power consumption. You know, last week there was this issue that came up that ECG was going to be charging VAT and the rest. The GRA has reacted to that, or has put out a statement. And let me just go through it. So the Ghana Revenue Authority says there are no plans to introduce new taxes to be levied on power consumption, especially in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. The statement said the supply of electricity to a dwelling of up to a maximum consumption level specified for block charges of lifeline units is still exempt from VAT, NHIL, and Ghana Education Trust Fund levy. It said the Electricity Company of Ghana already charges VAT, NHIL, and GET fund levy on the supply of electricity in excess of lifeline units. So it says the statement said the purpose of the said GRA letter was to draw the attention of power producers, in particular, to the VAT mechanisms as it applies to the power sector, and to get the operators to invoice the supply of power to the ECG correctly. So, well, essentially, they're saying this is an internal document. We're not seeking, ECG is supposed to be charging VAT and those taxes already, and that all we're seeking to do is to get them to compute it correctly and pay the appropriate amounts. And it also goes on to talk about some misunderstanding of ECG, or it says ECG over the years has had some challenges claiming input VAT associated with the supply of electricity by power producers, which could have reduced the net tax payable by ECG to GRA. It explained. So that's about it. That's the story. Because certainly people were worried that, are we going to pay VAT on ECG, the electricity we consume, which certainly would have shot up tariffs.
But it's okay, well, I think we still have to go back and clarify a few things. So they're saying, according to what you've read, we already pay VATs
essentially, yeah,
on the provision of electricity.
Yeah, so electricity supply, we're paying already.
Okay.
Yeah. So this has to do with something between ECG and GRA.
Well, the Member of Parliament who first raised this issue, subsequently with a directive put out, Adams Wotakilo, we'll see what he says following this reaction.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe that already we have a lot of tax components embedded in the structure of the consumption and what is paid by the consumer. And just recently, about in April, we had the independent power producers as well as the chamber for these power producers, led by Eliklim Nwokpo also, advocating that we needed to make sure that we remove some of these embedded levies and taxes so that electricity and the way it's produced and ultimately distributed to the consumer is also affordable. And I believe that the more something is consumed, it also means that the demand ultimately goes high. And you can rake in a lot of revenue out of it. But of course, there's always the debate out there as to where we need to get taxes from. And it's always been argued by even the Bretton Woods institutions that in Africa, we like the direct taxes. It's very easy. And there's a high component of our population which still remain untaxed. And so it makes it easier for central governments to say that, look, this is what we want to do directly. Those who already are paying taxes should be paying more. I'm hoping that perhaps...
Yeah, and trying to get a lot more people into the tax net is the reason why I am one of those who supports the National Identification Authority and registration, the fact that everybody else we should identify everybody in the country. They should have a national ID. When they have the national ID, it makes it easier for us to identify them and to tax them, or whether we're taxing them or whether we're giving them reliefs, it makes it easier. Otherwise, we don't have any means of determining who should be taxed and who shouldn't be taxed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, NHI.
Any other stories of interest before we do myjoyonline.com?
There's this argument about the recoveries and the rate, etc. And I know that Joyce Bawa Muktari has come in for a lot of bashing over the period. And I was thinking that people wanted to ask realistic questions, or because of where she's coming from, these questions have been put under great scrutiny. But I believe that we need also to come out with a lot of explanations as to why we're likely going to have more recoveries. And I believe that we've done a lot of work right here on the channel. During the lockdown yesterday evening, we saw the Deputy Minister of Health try to explain the reasons why we're likely to have more of these recoveries. But these needed to be forthcoming before anybody assumed and predicted whatever it should be, whether there was any conspiracy at all.
So there's been this issue of whether, sometime last week, Dr. Belu Sarkodie actually said that we're considering a situation where we're going to review the 2 negative tests that we do for recovered people, or people before we certify people to be fully recovered. And he said that they were considering it. And so once that we see, sudden increase in the number of recoveries, then people are wondering, is it the case that we have gone back to just 1 negative test to certify somebody as fully recovered? And that's the question that I think people were asking, and I think was legitimate for people to ask that question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, the whole political twists was added, particularly because of where she was coming from. And it almost sounded as if, because I've seen the headline in one of the papers this morning saying she was mocking.
Yeah.
But really, a lot of people legitimately asked a lot of questions on that. And people assumed that it meant, so when we record more negative numbers, then it looks like people are rejoicing. It's almost as if we want the numbers to go up, but we don't want the recoveries to go up. But I absolutely also believe that we need to ask legitimate questions. And I think some of the things that have come up in terms of questioning the recoveries, very legitimate. We all need the answers. If we're doing just 1 negative test, we should know. And there's a press briefing, not today, tomorrow, but hopefully we'll get some more answers in the course of today.
Definitely.
So yes, people are asking legitimate questions. Like I asked this legitimate question of, we talked about the 25th of April being the day that we saw the most cases. And so we have 2 graphs out now. The first one came out somewhere, essentially it came out with 200, and it indicated on the 25th of April, we had 270 cases. And then we had another graph that came out last week, which indicated that on the same 25th of April, we had 330 cases. It's a legitimate question to ask, what accounted for the increase in the number of cases on the same day? Because the first graph that was put out was used, or histogram that was put out was used to justify why we had seen the most cases in a day, essentially the peak issue. And so it's a legitimate question to ask.
And I think that's why we have always said that there needs to be some consistency and preemptiveness in the way the communication is undertaken, so that nobody has any doubt in mind. Because, for example, if you take the last update, the one before the last update, Oti region had a number or a figure 26. The last update gave it a figure of 24. And if anybody wanted to play with the minds of the ordinary Ghanaian, this is the opportune time for them to do so. So we need to get our facts right and get our act right as well.
Because if we don't get it right, people begin to doubt the communication and the figures that you put out. So they look at it and they say, why are we getting inconsistencies? And so they're wondering, when each time you come to tell them something, they're wondering, is that going to change? The information you're sharing with me now, is that going to change in a couple of days? And that doesn't help what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's do myjoyonline.com. Mama V, we have all the updates right there on our main portal.
So judgment in NCA case not supported by evidence, according to former Deputy Attorney General who was on Newsfile on Saturday. His firm is actually handling some of the officers. Okay, so one of them in this case, that's the director, the former director of the NCA. So he had a lot to say on Newsfile on Saturday, promising to bring more documents. COVID-19 discussion should move from AFP fact check of Akufo-Addo, Dr. Abuaji urges. Okay, that's the other Abuaji da Costa. Madagascar registers its first COVID-19 death, but has not quit World Health Organization. So there's a certain advocacy being spearheaded by the Madagascan president, asking African leaders to quit the World Health Organization. Okoboy reacts to AFP report on COVID-19 testing in Africa on Beyond the Lockdown yesterday. Still on the COVID-19 discussion. Okay, so I think it's just a repeated headline. You can play back Beyond the Lockdown as it discussed living with COVID-19 if you missed it yesterday. On obeying COVID-19 safety measures is best gift for health workers, according to Dr. Akoriye. Man cuts off son's ear, bends his fingers for stealing 250 Ghana cedis. Obama criticizes Trump administration's virus response, also one of the trending issues.
Very trending. And
okay, so the story about the Madagascar registering its first COVID-19 death, it was something I was working on yesterday. It's actually started with me trying to. There was a story that was making the rounds that Madagascar had quit the WHO, and I found it a bit. So I wanted to actually. I just suspected that it was fake news. So I sought to try and understand what actually is the story. I went in there. And I noticed that he had granted an interview, the president of Madagascar had granted an interview to France 24. In that interview, he said a lot of the things that he's being quoted to have said, except he didn't say that they were quitting the WHO and asking other African countries to quit. And so I kept probing and probing and probing. And eventually, I found out that he actually didn't say that.
So he's not advocating for that?
Not at all.
No, and he's also not advocating for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I put out a tweet and I tagged the president, and somebody from Madagascar, an official who didn't want to be named, got in touch with me and said it wasn't true and that the story is fake news. And it was whilst probing that the first Madagascar death on COVID-19 came out.
Right. Well, we'll have to wrap up the segment, but look, in the UK, they're training dogs to be able to sniff out all those who are infected with coronavirus. We'll end the segment with that, but Mamavi and Israel, that'll be it for now.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me, Mamavi and Roland.
Yeah. All right. Have a super day.
Enjoy the day.
Izzy is back later tonight, of course, with the news. Yes. Stay with us. We've got a lot more to talk about, including this one, Project Restart, with the Bundesliga starting. There's lots of conversation. Apparently, Project Restart, which is the English Premier League, may even move forward further from the dates given earlier. Benedict has got all these details and real football on the pitch.
So that was Jonathan Mensah. Now, Black Stars B assistant coach Gordon Atram thinks the Ghana Premier League should not be cancelled, as suggested by many followers of the game. Now, Atram, who managed Olympics last season, wants us to take a cue from Germany and resume the league if need be. He was on the Joy Sports Link last Saturday.
Football must come back. No matter what it is, I think the FA need to put some measures on grounds to the government, because the government who will decide what we have to do and not. Okay. But if the FA put up good measures that people will be safe, then why not? Unless you're not a football man.
Okay, Germany is playing without fans.
Yes, they're playing without fans.
So you want us to start the league, restart without fans?
Yeah, we can play without fans. If only clubs don't think that, hey, if people doesn't come to stadium, we won't have fans or we won't make money. But if it happens that way, and we really want football to come back, because we have national assignment. Other countries are playing football even with the COVID. we have national assignment and other things, then I believe that maybe the FA will decide maybe to support the clubs so that we can play behind closed doors. But football is football. Even with the COVID, if you are home and staying quietly and watching football, you can stay at home until further notice.
All right, so that's Gordon Ashram there. You hear more from him in our subsequent sports bulletins on other issues. Now, Reverend Eastwood Anaba of Eastwood Anaba Ministries is part of the many football fans that can't wait for the return of the English Premier League.
This man is a preacher, but he loves his football. May God protect them and may they play the football. Oh boy, we want the football back. I want to see Rashford, Marcus Rashford in action. I want to see Bruno Fernandes back. I want to see Paul Pogba back after that long break. Oh, Jesus. I'm mentioning the players I like. I'm not talking about William. Pastor Mike can talk about William when he takes this microphone. I'm not talking about Giroud. Pastor Mike can talk about that one. I'm not talking about, what is the name of their goalkeeper? Azaba something Balaga. No. I'm talking about David De Gea. You know, those are my people. Huh? I've been talking to one of the Manchester United players, and the man cannot wait to get back and play. And I can't wait to see him on the ball.
Well, the man of God is a staunch Manchester United fan. He cannot even, remember the name of the Chelsea player, but he is able to, talk about his own players and says they are his own people. Yeah, we all can't wait for the English Premier League to come back. And talk of the Premier League, the clubs hope to give their players the go-ahead to return to training in small groups this week, but there is a growing feeling the intended June 12 date for matches to start again will need to be pushed back. Now, a vote is due to take place on training and medical protocols when the 20 top flight clubs hold their next meeting. That's this morning. If passed, players would be able to train in groups of 5 from Tuesday, that's tomorrow. That would be on condition that they observe social distancing rules and adhere to a series of strict criteria, which include getting changed at home and driving to training grounds on their own. At least 14 of the 20 clubs must agree that safety protocols are sufficient for the plan to be approved. And that's how we end sports here on AM Show. I'm Benedict Osu. Thanks so much for your company. The show continues after this short break. Do join us at 2 on Sports Today, our major sports bulletin on this platform for more sports. Until then, keep watching Joy News.
Well, we told you we'll have an interaction with the couple himself, JB, the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, John Buedu. He's right here. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, great. How was your weekend?
Quite okay. Quite okay.
Right. And because of social distancing, it means that we get to interact less and less physically.
I think so. And since this pandemic is going to live with us for some time, I think that we need to adapt to the changing times and be able to communicate effectively. Yeah.
That does it mean you don't open the party office? Or
we do, but as usual, just as you also do here, we ensure the observance of social distance protocols. Without a mask, we will not allow you to enter the headquarters. There's a lot of very buckets, position advantage point for any person who wants to enter to wash his hands, sanitize, and all that. So I think that we are keeping to that, and we don't allow too many people at a time to enter the headquarters, and to make sure that everybody and the lives of our people are safe. Yeah.
All right. Prior to coronavirus, all your timetable was set for you to have the election based on the last round-up of the constituencies that you currently occupy, to make sure you get candidates and ultimately elect your flag bearer. This has thrown everything out of gear.
It's rather unfortunate, but all of us must adjust to the changing times. Just as you said, before the COVID got to this level, we had slated April 25th, 2020 as the date for elections for where we have sitting members of parliament. We've done all the arrangements. We've put in place the National Parliamentary Vetting Committee. They've they are done with their vetting. As per the rules, we allow them to publish the list of people that they are recommending for primaries. But as you know, if a body like that take decisions, and we must allow any individual who have some comments to make or some disagreement to also express his or her view. So just as I said, we had a body called the National Parliamentary Appeals Committee that sat and received appeals and petitions from people who think that the decision of national, or disagree with the decision of the National Parliamentary Vetting Committee. They've also done their work, and per the rules and regulations, their work must go straight to the National Executive Committee through the General Secretary. So they've presented their work and their reports. We at the steering committee level have also looked at the whole or the entire recommendations of the Parliamentary Vetting and the Appeals Committee, and also had some few recommendations on our own, waiting to hold the National Executive Committee for the final ratification of all the recommendations. You remember that a week to 25th of April, we at the National Steering Committee level, mandated by the Constitution, that is responsible for taking urgent decisions on behalf of National Executive Committee, found it necessary to postpone the 25th April parliamentary primaries indefinitely, and it included the acclamation of the presidential candidates as well. So we are waiting, particularly looking at the environment, what the government is doing, the government commanding control of the pandemic. We are waiting, particularly with the ban on public gathering, conferences. We are waiting to see whether there will be an improvement or easing of that ban, which throughout the country, every country is looking at how best to return its country back to normalcy, also taking into consideration making sure that the lives and people of their country is safe. We have a very difficult situation as we find ourselves as a country, although we are not in this situation alone. There are a lot of countries that have slated their elections this year. A few of them have postponed, but a lot of them continue with their elections. Mali just had theirs. South Korea had their fantastic election that led to a massive turnout as opposed to even normal times, by observing social distance protocols and making sure that even people who come to the electoral area to vote, and it turns out that they are exhibiting high temperature, they are giving special attention, go to special polling station for the election. Tanzania will be having the election in October, and we in this country obviously will have our elections on December 7th. Our constitution is very tight. Our constitution does not provide room for experiment at all, particularly with regards to presidential election. By 6th of January, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo mandated 4-year term comes to an end. And by that time, we should have determined who, as a country, we want to give the mandate to run this country from 2021 to January 6, 2025. So the government is aware of this, and we in the New Patriotic Party believe strongly that we don't want a situation where there will be an hour late in determining who runs this country.
You want to make sure that we go according to the calendar, what the Constitution dictates.
We just have to be sure, because the kind of chaos, if you are not very careful, that will send this country into may not be imaginable. You can't estimate it, you understand? So as government is ensuring, putting in place measures to ensure that our lives are safe, government is also conscious that certain institutions, like political parties, like electoral commission, like NIA, for instance, have a constitutional duty to also perform. So I believe that in the midst of all this, where government is also clear that December 7 election must necessarily be held. It will obviously put in place measures that will allow this institution, because it is not only the New Patriotic Party who have not yet finished their parliamentary primaries. NDC have a lot that they've not done yet as we speak now. Other political parties have not even had their National Executive Committee elections, and they've not done their presidential elections, they've not selected their parliamentary candidates and all. And you know, the election is not an event, it's a process, and it's a process that starts from somewhere leading to the main day and after the main day.
So far with the party, how many of your would-be interested candidates have come with complaints to the body that is responsible for resolving these grievances about not having the opportunity to contest?
If you check the list, you have close to 50, 60, but about 25 constituencies that will receive complaints and petitions from members of our party who disagreed in some way or the other with the National Parliamentary Vetting Committee. Yeah.
Because some of those complaints, some of which we have received, indicate that the party silently seem to be backing certain individuals than having an open contest.
The party, just as I have said, the party's decision to allow contests is in the bosom of the National Executive Committee. And it is for that reason why, as we speak now, even those who filed without a contest, even at the time of opening nomination, it is up to the National Executive Committee to agree that they should go unopposed, even at that level. Not to talk about people who could not go through National Parliamentary Vetting Committee, people who were also not recommended by the National Parliamentary Appeals Committee, and even people who were not recommended at the National Steering Committee. So the ultimate decision maker, the organ that have that responsibility, is the National Executive Committee. So any news you hear outside, it's news that you must also decipher. But you must know, if you're a party person, you must know that it is after the National Executive Committee meeting has been held, which I believe that, like I told you, if the ban on public gathering and conferences are eased a little, we'll obviously have that meeting to decide on the way forward for the 168 constituency. Just as I told you, when we open nomination, about 34 of the constituencies, only one person filed to contest in those constituencies, 34 of them. So out of the 168, you are having close to 134 of them that went through the vetting process. At the end of the parliamentary vetting process, some also were scheduled to go unopposed. At the end of the parliamentary vetting process, those who made an appeal after the appeals committee have gone through the details, invited witnesses and all that. Some also ended up going unopposed. But all these should be put together, because you realize that even when we open presidential candidate nomination, it is only Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the President of the Republic of this country, put in an application to contest and effectively filed. Even he's not a candidate yet. Right. We still have to have a National Congress to acclaim his candidature. Right. You understand? As we speak now, he indicated when he was filing that he would have loved to go again with his vice president, the vice president of this country, as his running mate. Even that decision must go through the National Council of the party with that recommendation.
That's just a formal process.
It's a formal process.
He's the president of the land.
If you don't,
and he's the only one who has filed to contest.
We've seen in this country where sitting members of parliament, a sitting president have been contested by their own people. We've we've seen in this country. So it is not an automatic thing. It is a process that you need to go through, because that's what the dictate of your constitution is. If you sidestep that process, although you are saying that it's a normal process, you can be slapped with all kinds of challenges that is not helpful.
When we put out the poster, this is what we got. Please kindly ask John Buedu, the General Secretary of the MPP, what they are doing about the unopposed issue in a Brim constituency. Has it come to your attention? Over 300 polling station executives have filed a petition calling for an open contest, and this has been submitted to his good office. They should allow for open contest in order to unite the party in the Brim constituency. What do you say to this?
This is a matter for National Executive Committee.
Not for you.
I told you we have processes. The first process is the National Parliamentary Vetting Committee. If anybody they've put together their concerns, they could have gone to the National Parliamentary Vetting Committee. Even if they couldn't, we had the National Parliamentary Appeals Committee. These petitions could have gone there as part of their determination of deciding whether to open for primaries or not. So that opportunity or window is also gone. But we still have a National Executive Committee that will be meeting. And at that meeting, we are going to take the constituencies one by one. All the 168 constituencies, we'll pick them one by one. Those constituencies that are issues, those constituencies that some were not recommended, all these will be discussed and a final decision will be made. And that will be the final decision. So, yes, we've received similar concerns and complaints by individuals or group of people in the party. But all these things will be compiled for the attention of the National Executive Committee.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that, at least even for first-time MPs, the party needs to protect them? And
it's not a question of protecting them. It's a question of the party taking a strategic decision towards the elections and making sure that we put our best foot forward. We are not in politics just for its sake. We are in politics to win elections, both presidential, and get majority in parliament in order to be able to implement our ideas and our programs. So it is not just about being there. Other than that, there wouldn't be any need for polling station executives, there wouldn't be any need for electoral area coordinators, constituency executive, regional executive, and national executive. And even on top of national officers, we have other bodies, National Steering Committee, National Executive Committee, and the National Council of the party. In all these, we still have a national conference. That is the ultimate decision-making body of the party. So, for instance, if you take a constituency like a Kumfi, we've never won a Kumfi constituency before since 1992. The only time we won is the 2016. We won that seat. Even then, we lost the presidential. With such a seat, if the MP had not done anything untoward, if he's able to manage his constituency so well, if he's not having challenges in his constituency, I can't see why the party cannot take a decision that let this gentleman go. Unfortunately for us, nobody contested him. But I'm just giving you an example.
What about Bantama? Bantama, for example,
Can I finish? I'm giving you an example of where strategically as a party, we need to put that constituency in an ICU condition to manage it, because it's very fragile. It's a constituency that we've never won before. There are issues that we need to manage. And opening it up for an open contest may do some damage to the party, so to speak. So it depends on the constituency.
So you look at some peculiar constituencies.
We do, but the example that I gave you, clearly, we didn't even prevent anybody from contesting. At the end of the filing period, it is only one candidate that put up his
There are some notable strong...
What are you going to
don't worry,
say about Bantama?
Let me ask.
What are you going to say about Bantama?
So there are some strong personalities.
Come back to Bantama.
Okay, there are some strong personalities.
Why don't you come to Bantama?
I'm asking.
Okay.
Like the Member of Parliament for Bantama, he's been contested. And then also we have Dr. Mark Esibeye Boy's constituency. He's been contested. And there are some commentators who believe, based on their observation of the political trends, that at least the party should protect some of these areas.
They are the same people, if we had done so, who also say that we are preventing other people from also contesting. How different is that constituency from other constituencies? You understand? They are the same people, the very commentators, who will be the ones who will start accusing the party of being undemocratic and all that. So I don't see, it depends on the constituency. And you must also know that there are constituencies that have challenges that span between periods of time. You understand? For instance, let me give you a typical example. The constituency that you mentioned, Osesibe, he's been contesting this individual for almost 2-3 times over a period of time. You understand? So what would be the reason for us to say that this gentleman should not be allowed to contest? What would be the reason? You understand? And even that reason does not lie in my mouth. It lies in the National Parliamentary Vetting Committee, which did the vetting and passed both of them. It lies if anybody had a difficulty, just as you are saying that there are individuals who think that some constituencies need to be protected. They could have written to National Parliamentary Appeals Committee, or even now, if they have any reason that they think that the reason is strong enough, they can write to the National Executive Committee through me, and it will be put before the National Executive Committee. So I don't think that the door is shut to some of these discussions at all.
And we know that what is currently dominating the headlines, for which even we've had the National Identification Authority come to react strongly, and of course your party as well, with your campaign manager for 2020 also reacting strongly, is the related issue about whether or not the Electoral Commission should compile a voters register.
I think that question has been solved. That question had been agreed on. That decision has been made. There has been a lot of discussions about whether we should have a new register or not at IPAC level, at a lot of forums that the platform was giving. It just ended last forum that determined whether we should have a new register or not was the forum that was organized by the advisory committee to the Electoral Commission. Majority of the political parties present at that meeting agreed that there must be a new register. Majority, and it is clear. So what else? I'm not saying that majority decision is always right anyway, but I'm saying that just as we did in 2015, where after an extensive discussion about the need for a new register, we were pushing for a new register. The NDC in particular was also pushing for the register to be maintained. The then head of the Electoral Commission with her commissioners convened another meeting like we did just recently. And at that meeting, at the end of the exercise, the committee felt that there's a need for us to sanitize the register, and there's no need within the period of time for us to organize a new register. And it ended there. We were pushing for a new register. We were now giving. We got back on our drawing table and put in place measures that enable us win by the widest margin ever. You understand? So I don't think that there's any debate on the need for a new register now. What is debatable, if the NDC will be fair to themselves and also help their people, is what measures is the Electoral Commission going to put in place in order to ensure that people don't cram up at the polling stations in the attempt to register, and what other safeguards are they going to put in place to ensure that people are safe and healthy after the exercise? So I don't think that that is on the table at all. And we expect that the Electoral Commission, as they've indicated, that they are ready to compile a new register, and we are also waiting for them to bring out the measures that will safeguard our lives. So I don't think that's debatable at all, unless the NDC wants to reignite the debate on that matter. If not, we've discussed and we've passed there. We are waiting for the Electoral Commission to tell us their preparedness towards compilation of the new register and their preparedness towards the December 7th elections.
A key concern that they, alongside those who seem to agree with them, have raised is a related issue about whether we could have enough voters get access to, because they want to register, the relevant documentation, whether it's an NIA card or the relevant ones to be able to register.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Because one, you see, the NDC had a wonderful opportunity from the people of this country to be given the mandate to run this country for 8 years, 2009 to 2016. They ran this country from 2000 to 2008. They are the same party, and with another, they ran the country for 11 years. They did not think about having a one-stop shop national identification card that identify citizens and non-citizens of this country. We started a process between 2007 and 2008. Unfortunately, we lost the 2008 elections. For 8 years that they were in power, they couldn't complete the exercise. They could not complete the exercise. And you remember that when we put it before Parliament for the exercise to have that legal cloth or legal background for us to go on, they even boycotted and decided not to be part of it. So is it not strange for the same people who said that national identification cards are unnecessary, they are not going to be part of it, are now complaining that the identification system had not captured enough people? Is it not strange? Don't you think that it is a reason why maybe a lot of NDC people did not even register with the National Identification Authority? Don't you think so? But if the leadership of the party in Parliament have indicated openly, and until now, nobody has heard them reversing that decision and advising their people to go out there and register. Is that not it? Have you ever heard from them that they are urging on their members or even the entire citizenry to go out there and register? They've not done so. And the very people will now come back and say that the numbers are not enough, those giving the cards are not enough. And you see, I shudder to understand, and sometimes I think that the media should go beyond just listening to some of these cacophony. Because one, for you to say that the National Identification Authority have deliberately done the strongholds of the NDC and left the strong, what was the logic behind that? Because look, in this country, if you take Upper West, if you are using the parliamentary seats, NDC has 6 constituencies, NDC, MPP have 5. The only region amongst the northern regions that you can say is a stronghold of the NDC is Upper East. If you come to Northeast, NDC have 3 parliamentary candidates, we also have 3. If you come to the northern region, we have 9, they also have 9. Savannah, they have 6, we have 1. If you come to Bono region, we have almost about 90%. If you come to Ahafo region, we have 4, they have 2. If you come to Bono East, that they have a bit of a majority. If you come to Western region, you have close to 98%. If you come to Central region, you have 19 out of 23 constituencies. If you come to Greater Accra, we have 24. Now, NDC has 13 sitting members of Parliament. We have 21 in Greater Accra. If you take Eastern region, so on what basis were you expecting the National Identification Authority to have conducted its activity? Because if you take the 16 regions, you can barely get NDC having a stronghold per the recent elections of just about 5 regions. So there's no logical sequence to what they said. It does not make sense. Even they, when they were in power and tried to half-heartedly go ahead with the registration exercise, they did the same arrangement. It depends on the strategy of the National Identification Authority. In what sense does this link to connivance with government and party to rig elections in favor? What is this?
They raise issues of how logistics were beefed up in the Ashanti region and the Eastern region. Of course, this has been displaced by
throw it to the dogs.
And consistently, they seem to be hampering on the fact that if you look at the strongholds of the MPP, so to speak, the Ashanti and the Eastern region, there seems to have been more time also spent for the registration.
It's not true. You know it. How can you say that more time was spent in the Eastern region when even the time allotted to them didn't elapse as a result of COVID? So you listen to some of these things and you shudder to understand that what is the motive of the NDC? Are they prepared for the December 7th elections? If they are, then I don't think that is the kind and the line of questions they should concern themselves with at all. What I think they need to do, they should concentrate on putting out and preparing their manifesto. They should concentrate on having alternative to the excellent performance of the New Patriotic Party and be ready to debate us on those issues. You understand? Because you were given the opportunity to run this country for 8 years. You took this country at a GDP level of close to 8.3. By the time you were leaving, it is 3.7. Even when we have been able to discover oil in commercial quantities, that was added to our GDP computation in 2011. It is only in that year that they achieved a GDP growth of 14.5%. 14.3%. Since then, they've never been able to do so. You run a country where you couldn't even pay for teacher training allowance, you couldn't pay for nursing training allowance, even chalk you couldn't provide. Chalk, you couldn't provide. So this is the country we are talking about. We've taken over for the past 3.5, 4 years. You must be ready to debate. You must be ready to put in place some programs that will ensure that even the Ghanaian people will listen to you a bit. You still lose, but at least you have put up some dispirited performance, which is okay. What the NDC, if I were in their shoes, should concern themselves about is how the Electoral Commission will put in place measures. Because it is not possible there wouldn't be registration exercise in this country towards December 7th. It is not possible. Because we have people who have turned the age of 18 whose numbers are huge, close to 1 million plus. Are you saying that we can have a credible election with integrity and the needed confidence when close to 1 million people who are qualified to vote are disenfranchised? Is that possible? So that is what, that kind of debate, that kind of discussion that I expect that brothers and sisters from the NDC should engage us. Let us together. I would have wished, instead of them putting the argument the way they've put it, I would have wished that they will call on us to join them in suggesting to the Electoral Commission, because our job or our mandate as a political party is not to dictate to the Electoral Commission, it's to advise. That's why we have the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. Our job is to advise. So I expect that if they clearly are willing to contest the December 7th election, by now they should have a strategy within the challenges that we have to advise the Electoral Commission to be able to put in place measures that will safeguard the lives of our people and also ensure that the process leading to elections are met.
A continuous aspect of trying to get all the parties on board to do this is the fact that the Electoral Commission is the player that is going to regulate this. Now, the Electoral Commission on one hand says that it is going ahead. Indeed, there's a tender. Of course, the period for the tender has even ended. And so it means that the registration will take place. Yeah. At which point in time do you think the parties need to come back to the table and rally behind the Electoral Commission?
I'm saying that at all times we need to rally behind the Electoral Commission, depending on what decisions they take, because they are responsible for the management of the elections. And if anything goes wrong, it is they and not the NDC who will be accused of having not been able to manage the election well. This is where we are. The Electoral Commission said they've done their preparation, they are ready, they are waiting for the social distance protocols to be eased or lifted a bit to allow them to be able to put in place the measures that they think about to organize a successful registration exercise and continue the process to very credible and transparent elections in December 7. So I expect the NDC to come up. I expect the NDC to churn out some ideas for discussion. You understand? Because we are waiting for the Electoral Commission to come out with the set protocols that they want to put in place. We will interrogate those protocols and make sure that our people are safe. For instance, the last IPAC meeting that we held, the NDC boycotted it. They even wrote a letter that they were not going to be part of that meeting. Yeah? And as a result, they think that it's unnecessary for Electoral Commission to have IPAC. But they even sent somebody there, Otokuno, to come and almost insult all of us and left. At that meeting, the CI that is before the parliament that is awaiting maturity was discussed at that meeting. You were not there. Was discussed at that meeting. Because that meeting was called to inform political parties per the political parties' rules that 21 days to an intended registration, political parties must be informed. So we were called for that information, but other things also came on the table. And the CI and the requirements for registration was discussed in much details. You had then boycotted that meeting, so you were not on the table. So if you had issues with the Electoral Commission limiting requirements to passports, NIA, and also having, if you don't have both, having 2 people to guarantee for you. They've even expanded. We used to have a situation where an individual can only vouch for 5 people. They've expanded it to 10. You understand? So if you had something to put on the table, you should have been there where the discussion was necessary. You don't finish and come back weeks later, sleep and wake up and think that you need to just say something. That is not the forum for that discussion, because the CI is in the process. It takes time to mature. So you failed your people. This is clear lack of proper leadership of the NDC. You fail your people, assuming even the point that you were raising is right. You failed them, because at the time that you need to discuss it, you were nowhere on the table.
In all this, and you have great experience in party politics in Ghana, how relevant would you say the Inter-Party Advisory Committee is in the scheme of contributing to complementing the efforts of the Electoral Commission in the organization of general elections?
It continues to be relevant and very, very useful, just as the motive for setting up is right from 1994, 95, thereabouts. But it is that platform that will have the opportunity to also contribute in helping the Electoral Commission to take decisions. And this we continue to debate, we may not all accept.
So you do agree IPAC is very important?
It is critical. It is critical. And even the CIs and the political party law requires that such information platform should be offered for discussion and all that. So it is very important. It has never been something that anybody is thinking of scrapping at all. Even to the extent some are even arguing that it should have a constitutional backing. You understand? So I really think that it continues to enjoy the kind of importance as.
But just a year ago, we had the chairperson of the Electoral Commission say this. He says the Inter-Party Advisory Committee is an advisory body and a forum for the exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
So we do not find IPAC to be interfering, but there are certain elements in the society who are trying to impose IPAC on the commission and trying to really reduce or water down the independence of the Electoral Commission.
I think that
how do you think, based on this statement, the Electoral Commission would believe that IPAC is interfering or trying to water down its independence in any way when you say that IPAC is relevant?
I think that what she said is nothing different from what the law is. What she said is exactly what it is. IPAC is a forum for cross-fertilization of ideas and helping the Electoral Commission to take decision. It is not the decision of IPAC, or it is not mandatory for the Electoral Commission to take decisions of IPAC. You understand? It is an advisory body. They will sit back and look at the advice and take, and it hasn't changed. But for people to think that IPAC now should be the body that decides on the direction of election, I think it's wrong. In that set thinking, it creates problems for the Electoral Commission and its independence. So I don't think that what she has said is different from what the law is and what the practice has been. I've told you, we in 2015 and in other years in our election cycle have pushed for one direction or the other. Either change of register, either change of the laws, either inclusion of one thing or the other. At some point, the Electoral Commission agrees. At some other point or situation, they don't agree. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. So nobody should ever think that because it's important to have IPAC, it means that it must superimpose its ideas on the Electoral Commission. It can never be done so. It can never. Assuming we allow that, then at any given point in time, MPP or are thinking of superimposing ideas on the Electoral Commission is only to accept the views of the opposition. Is that what it is? Or accept the position of party in government? Is that the chaos we want to bring to this country? So it is a forum that does that, and it should remain as such. Just as I told you, even people are pushing for us to have a law backing the existence of IPAC. And I think that if we will be able to clearly define its role and have the legal backing, I will not go against it at all. But that is not to say that it is taking the independence of the Electoral Commission by way of imposing its ideas on them. That cannot be.
On the front page of the Daily Dispatch today, and
yeah, so
the poster beneficent seems to suggest that there will be ways by which the Electoral Commission could go about the election, even though COVID still exists.
Yeah.
Now, it suggests that voting hours could be increased to 12 hours, and then voting should start as early as 6 instead of the 7. Now, how can the parties within this period, where the World Health Organization is telling us, as well as our own health service is saying that this is going to be with us for a long time, going to also position themselves to be able to fit into all these, while the Electoral Commission also prepares the calendar?
But for COVID, we're even looking at shortening the voting period. And if you want to shorten the voting period, what it means is that we must expand or increase the number of polling stations per center. And if you do so, the Electoral Commission try to have a cap of 600 per polling station. And that gives us close to 31,000 polling stations. You understand? If the Electoral Commission goes ahead to place a minimum cap of 300, it means that we must have 62,000 polling stations. And that can ensure that the number of people cramming up at a polling station is reduced. You can also look in at the voting time. But if you even extend the voting time and you still have huge numbers at one polling station, it will not even solve the problem. In South Korea, for instance, they had what we called a queue instructor who were controlling the queues and making sure that not only at the time of voting, but even at the time of preparation for voting, social distance protocols are observed. I think that there's you see, the danger in voting into the night is visibility and the possibility of other people challenging the process, you understand? So these are school of thoughts that all of us must be on the table to be thinking through. There's even a school of thought that says that we must vote for 2 days. Which is also allowed in our laws. Do you remember in 2012 where there were challenges with the biometric system,
had to be extended
it was extended. You see, the difference there was that it was extended capriciously. There were constituencies or polling stations that people couldn't vote, but a decision was not taken to extend it. There were some that the decision was taken to extend it. And if you are going to do that, it must be backed by law, by a CI.
Definitely.
Because, you see, the danger is that if you determine election results before others are going to vote, it is likely to change their opinion towards one political party or the other. So if we are to even take a decision, assuming the pandemic gets worse, there are numbers now and the recovery rate and the death rate, I think that it is manageable. We wouldn't have even expected even one person dying, but it's manageable. If you are to take a decision that we should vote for 2 days, then it means that you start, maybe let's even take Venefson's suggestion, you start at 6, you close at 5. You close and protect, you count. You continue the next day, you come back, you check everything, you won't count. Then the next day, you continue from that process. But even in that process, what it means is that the Electoral Commission must be able to determine who counts the first day and who counts the second day.
And that will be a worry for the parties.
That's not just a worry. If they have a system that is clear, if they have a system that is not discriminatory, if they have a system that creates an equal platform for individuals to be able to determine that it is not based on because in our country I'm even surprised the NDC didn't play the tribal card. When it is easy to play the tribal card, you understand? So if you have a system, just as in other countries that have proper NI system of integrity, they even use it as part of their measures to curb coronavirus by way of determining by alphabet who should go out at which time to purchase it. Even in Dubai, what they do is that in times of the lockdown, if you want to go out, they have an app that you can go through, apply, give reason why you want to go out, where are you staying. They will do the verification.
Just to make sure they restrict.
Just to make sure they restrict.
Who comes out of
and
which
they give you time. By the time allotted to you, if you are unable to come back home, that attracts a penalty.
Yeah.
So having a very good system is okay.
And
that helps.
In the South Korean experience, they combined the normal social distancing, the physical appearances, with also the electronic voting. And for you, the parties, you seem to have a certain distrust for each other and the process, in a way, not negatively, because you don't know whether, if electronic voting is adopted or not, you could find transparency. What do you think about having electronic means by which we can vote?
You know, we used not to even believe in mobile money transfers in those days, because we've not had experience of it, we've not tried, we've not tested for us to have confidence in it. E-voting is done throughout the world, but not without challenges. You go to US, the massive challenges with e-voting and all that. And for you to adapt any system, you should have an incubation period for experiment and all that. I think it was started at our universities. I remember about 5-6 years ago. The results of it is something that you can write, even at our so-called place that people are supposed to be literate and understand and all that. So it's not because parties don't trust ourselves. It is not because of that, but it is because we've not been able to even start it. If you start it and we are able to have some confidence in the system that it cannot be manipulated, it cannot be hacked, it cannot be padded and all that, then everybody will be satisfied about it. So we will have a long way to go in that direction. You know, our internet penetration throughout the country is not the same, and we still have challenges with some of them. It is even for that reason why now, instead of using the VSAT system, we are using through MTN to operate our data center and all that. So nobody is averse to it. As for changes, it comes with time, it comes with practice. And I believe that just as we've grown to learn the use of mobile money and its safety, as we also are given the opportunity for such a system, why not?
Okay, and then I want to quote your campaign chair, your campaign team chair, in his last press conference. He said that the New Patriotic Party has done well as a government in power, and this is manifested by the various policy interventions that has been introduced by the Akufo-Addo-led government. If there's one policy intervention for which you say that even if for nothing at all, this will be the kicker for us to be voted into power, what would it be?
Oh, free SHS, of course. It's a major intervention that have put the future, detrimental challenges that the youth is going to face, have brought it to light and have helped in shaping our future. It is about close to 1 million people who otherwise wouldn't be in school. Now, it is even a challenge for apprentices to get into some of these trades at this time, unless the person finishes SHS. Hitherto, just after JHS, most of them will come learning seamstressing, tailoring, fitting, and all that. Now, the minimum level of even trotro mate to be SHS, and this is monumental. Apart from that, we've been able to also checkmate ourselves in terms of our debt to GDP ratio, in terms of our deficits for a period of time. We've been able to maintain within 10%, even gone ahead to make a law that restricts us to 5%. In terms of also providing infrastructure, I think that we've done so well. We've not been able to have a lot of security issues as a country, and this is a plus to the New Patriotic Party. And I believe strongly, as we continue to chart a good path, as we continue to help increase the discovery of oil, that increases our base, as we continue to properly implement the SHS, as we continue to properly implement the planting for food and jobs, as we continue to help increase the capacity of buffer stock in order to provide an easy and accessible market for our farmers. I believe that even COVID also provides us with opportunity to increase the capacity of our textile industries. Now, most of these face masks are produced by local people, and I believe strongly that we in the New Patriotic Party don't need any help from anybody, not even the NDC. If they decide not to contest, we'll bring them to contest in order for us to beat them properly in the December elections.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Boydo.
Yeah,
and, well, JB, as is popularly called within the party, John Boydo is the General Secretary of the governing New Patriotic Party. Please make sure always you get relevant as you contribute meaningfully to our discussion platforms on Facebook, Joy News on TV, through our Twitter handle at Joy News on TV, and then you get all these uploaded on Joy News TV on YouTube, and then also myjoyonline.com bringing you all the latest updates where you can get all these referrals. In the meantime, I have to say thank you for passing through the studio. It's been an honor having you as well. But we want to have a lot of conversation on how we need to open schools, because the Ghana Education Service is now collating this position, or the position of the various entities, NAGRAT, NAT, etc., to make sure the reopening is done. How is it going to be done? Mama View Sabaji next with this discussion. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
Now, most governments around the world have temporarily closed educational institutions in an attempt to contain the spread of COVID-19. These nationwide closures are impacting almost 70% of the world's student population, according to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. It has been around 2 months since schools closed here in Ghana. Of course, when it comes to reopening schools, the tempo is far more uncertain. According to UNESCO data, 100 countries have not yet announced a date for schools to reopen. 65 have plans for partial or full reopening, while 32 will end the academic year online. For 890 million students, however, the school calendar has never been so undefined. When and how to reopen in schools is one of the toughest and most sensitive decisions on political agendas today. Is it safe to reopen schools, or is there a risk of reigniting infections? What are the consequences to children's mental health into the social development of young children. The decision is complex because the pandemic continues to evolve and not in linear manner. And that's why we took an interest in a directive we cited from the Ghana Education Service asking for inputs from key stakeholders in educational strategies to adopt to ensure that we can smoothly reopen schools while ensuring the maximum security and safety of all. According to the GES, it is putting together its plans for reopening schools in the event that the ban on schools is lifted by the president. So let's explore the possible strategies the country could adopt in our next conversation with our guest. In studio is Mr. Thomas Musa, he's General Secretary of NATS, the Ghana National Association of Teachers. Also joining us is Mr. Peter Anti, who is Executive Director, Institute for Educational Studies. Hi there, Peter. Good to see you.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, great. Mr. Musa, thank you for your time, for being here.
Thank you.
According to this directive that we've cited, the deadline is tomorrow. So what are you generally looking at in terms of reopening the strategies to adopt?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers and all the people around the world, teachers in particular, for the hard work and supporting almost every move of the government to get educational objectives achieved. Now, to the substantive issue before us this morning, it must be placed on record that the teacher unions, that is the Ghana National Association of Teachers, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, and the Concerned Teachers Ghana, we've all been together with TEU. We've all been together in ensuring that we get the best out of the situation that we found ourselves. Now, one of the key things, in fact, we should not be here this morning discussing this particular issue. The reason why this thing has come out is because this particular letter has come out, and which is creating fear and panic among the rank and file of our members.
What's the exact fear?
You see, currently, the figures we have is 5,735, and we've recorded 29 deaths. 29 deaths. And when people are looking at these particular figures and they see all that is happening, certainly it will create fear and panic among them. Because the question is, how do we go to school? Let me explain the school setting for us to understand. You see, we are talking about a situation where a class of 70 school children, and the teacher will go and teach them. And when a teacher is going to school, the teacher will board trotro before going to the school. And you have 70 children in a particular class coming from all walks of life to that particular classroom. The question is this: do we know the status of all the teachers who will be going to the school? Have they been tested? The children, have they all been tested? Do we know their state before they are going to the school? These are fundamental issues that we should all establish. Look, if we don't do that, and we start talking about reopening at this particular moment, then the question is, why wouldn't we wait for the president to come and speak? Then we take it out from there.
Okay, so if I understand you, and you're expressing the fears from members after citing the directive.
Exactly.
But my understanding of this is to explore the various strategies, just in case the president comes in his next address to say he's given a date for schools to reopen. Don't we have to explore what's the danger in that?
See, currently, schools or the educational institution is not the only place where it has been closed down. We have bars and all that sporting activities. Have you heard any of them talking about, let us put something like this in place so that have you seen anything from any of the sectors that have been closed down?
So you disagree with this directive from the GES?
Exactly.
That this shouldn't even come up for discussion?
Something like this, so you know the situation. Something like this, you could have called people, let us look at it. But to issue a letter like this, anticipating that because there is an extension up to the 31st of May, should the president lift up the ban? You see, this creates the impression in the minds of people that all things being equal, by the 31st of May, the ban will be lifted. You see, will be lifted. And when that happens, people are now beginning to ask, how will the system be like? And I've already explained to you I saw an advert flying on Joy FM. When I entered, I even commended you on that. Look, Ghanaians by nature, we are face-touching people. But we are being told that one of the safety protocols of this COVID-19 has to do with the fact that don't touch your face, don't touch your nose and all that. Can you imagine KG children? You let me put the KG children aside. Look, those who will be writing the BECE, by the 2020 budget, we are talking about 397,500 of them. The candidates alone. When you look at the WASI also, if you look at the 2018 budget, we are talking about 357,000, or let me say 358,000. These are the students. So these are students that if you bring them together, the question is, have you tested all of them? Because they all went home.
So your point exactly is what?
The point is that we have not put in place the necessary safety precautions to ensure that school reopens. We don't have the Veronica buckets there. We don't have the soap and running water in all the various institutions. The PPPs. Look, recently when we met at the tripartite committee meeting, it was agreed that government should provide, or the employer should provide, the nose masks to every teacher or all the workers in Ghana. Has that been done? These are issues that ought to be provided first. And then when all the safety, when all these PPEs are provided, then we can start talking about the next level or the next line of action.
Let me bring Peter in at this point. Peter, is there anything wrong with this directive from the Ghana Education Service?
My good friend Musa, I'm short of words. You see, we cannot continue to live like this, and we all don't know when this virus is going to be eradicated. Experts have said that it's going to be with us for a long time. So if the managers of our education system comes out to tell various stakeholders, and of course I have to put on record that we have been a strong advocate for this particular move, that the ministry should start engagement as early as possible to avoid what we call surprises, when that they will just come out one day and say that, oh, schools are going to reopen, this and this is what we're going to do, without the requisite kind of consultation that we have always spoke for. Now, the ministry is saying that these relevant stakeholders, what are the various measures and modes that you think we can institute, we can put together, so that in the event that we would want to reopen schools, we will be able to put these things together and ensure the safety and the well-being of our students and teachers. Not is saying they don't understand. I'm lost. I don't know.
Okay, so let him. He wants to clarify.
Please get me right. I did not say that Nat is saying that they don't understand. You have clearly stated that the measures to put in place, and I've mentioned the issue of the Veronica bucket, getting the water with soda soap and all those things to be provided. The issue of the PPEs, the nose masks and all that. And aside that particular one, take a class of 70. Take a class of 70, let's say class 3, a class of 70 with one teacher. How would that be done? These are issues that should have started first.
So let me ask you, Mr. Musa. So you're asking that there should be provision. So the GES should be telling teachers what they have done to protect teachers and students before they ask for your opinion in terms of what should be done in terms of strategies in reopening. Are you clear in your mind, Peter, his clarification?
That is what we have been talking against, that we do not want the managers of our economy, of our education, to push things down the throat of relevant stakeholders.
But
so we have always been advocating for a bottom-up approach.
Okay, but
now I don't think that the ministry do not have a strategy. I think the ministry would have a strategy, but then they are soliciting views from relevant stakeholders. How do we go about this? And this morning, I'm going to share with you the possible ways that we can go about this. And
okay,
I think that is what we have to do.
But let's just go back a little bit. Is it not legitimate to know, first of all, what, as the regulators, what they are thinking before you ask for, because you're asking me to come to work, what are you putting in place for my safety? And then I can share, yes. Is there anything wrong in that?
There's nothing wrong with that, but then the point is that we are soliciting, I think the ministry is soliciting views from relevant stakeholders, and together come out with a very concrete means by which in case they reopen schools, everybody will feel safe. I don't think this is something that is so strange that anybody should be so worried about. If it happened that the ministry comes out one day and says that this is what we are. Hello?
Yes, Peter, apologies there for that little disruption, but go on, we can hear you.
If it happens that the ministry comes out one day and say that this and this and this are what we have put in place, we are reopening schools at this time, I hope that the teacher unions will be very, very unhappy, and they will come out forcefully to state that they were not involved in any form of consultation, which we have also been stating, that the managers of our economy of our education should continuously engage the relevant stakeholders. So looking at this letter and listening to the rep, I'm a little bit lost, because I was thinking that the union should take advantage of this and provide concrete measures that can be put in place. For example, for all the things that he's talking about, the Veronica buckets and all those things that he's talking about, these are things that you would want to suggest in a document form to the ministry, so that when they reopen schools and these things are not happening, you would note that, yeah, we said this, you are not doing this, and because of that, you are doing A, B, C, and D. But you don't tell them that they should tell you what they are planning.
Peter, to be fair, this is a health issue. We have people who have the expertise in dealing. That's why we look up to the World Health Organization, for instance, for directions. There's strictly the Ministry of Health that's in charge. Teachers can't make better suggestions than the committee, for instance, that has been put in charge of this whole management of this pandemic.
I beg to differ. I think teachers stay.
Okay,
with students. So teachers stay classroom.
Peter, you have to start from the beginning, because we lost the sound.
Okay, I beg to differ. What I'm saying is that I think teachers stay in the classroom. They know how to manage the students. They know the school environmental situations. They know the conditions that they teach in. And they are the best people to tell the managers of higher education how, in their view, they think they can implement to ensure that the various safety measures that have been established by the health professionals can also be brought into the school system, and ensure that in the case that the schools are reopened, they would the safety of both the teachers and the students would be. And I have to make this point. We are not the only country.
Let's carry the conversation forward. Let's carry the conversation forward, because you said there are some strategies that you wanted to share with us. I don't want us to spend all the time on this particular point.
Yes. So the first point, and I agree with Musa, that the class sizes are huge. How do you navigate around this? Very, very large class sizes, and then you don't have enough infrastructure. And then apart from that, the teachers are not that enough to be able to, let's say, if you want to do any kind of move, you'll be able to do that. So these are three things. If you look at the pre-tertiary education, these are three things that any policy that will seek to reopen school should seek to address. One, the large number of classes. Two, the inadequacy of our infrastructure. And then three, the number of teachers that we have. So one, in terms of large number of classes, what do you think we can do? And I have to make this point that we are not the only country that is seeking to solicit views in order that schools will be open. I have to put on record that UNESCO have already issued a paper on this, that if in the instance that countries would want to reopen their schools, there are measures that they should take into consideration. So the first thing we have to look at is to look at how do we divide the classes. Can we run a shift system? Can we make use of open spaces like the football field? Maybe schools that are closer to chapels, can we use that? These are things that we should be thinking about. If we are running a shift system, how are we going to do it? Are we going to divide the school into two? Make sure that the classes are in such a way that the students will have enough spacing, that we observe the relevant protocols. Students will have enough spaces. Can we supply teachers with all the needed health equipment in terms of the nose masks, the hand sanitizers? Can we provide the schools with the relevant Veronica buckets that they need? Some of the schools do not have good source of water. What are we going to do about that? Apart from that, can we also ensure that schools do not do morning assembly? they do not do sports, they do not do worship as we do in our schools. So that for now, till the time that we are sure that the virus has been contained or the vaccine has been found, these things would be cancelled out of our schools.
Okay.
These are things that we should be proposing to our managers of education, so that in the event that we open the school, we will be tracking that how are these things going to be provided for our schools.
All right. Mr. Musa, what's the way forward? The deadline, as I read the what has been issued, says Tuesday. So what are you proposing? Are you staying silent, or you at least saying something back to the Ghana Education Service?
A quick one. Before we started, I indicated that we are here because this letter has gone viral. So we needed to respond. Number two, it's also disturbing. Now they're saying that...
So, if I had not gone viral, you wouldn't have responded? Or as in come in public?
No, we would have done it.
Okay, sure.
We would have done it. And it's also disturbing saying that when you ask him whether the health officers are not the best people to... And he's saying that he begs to differ. So does it mean that at this particular point in time, the health people, those who have been trained with the special knowledge and understanding to handle the issue at this particular time, they are no more needed? Is that what he's saying?
So, Mr. Musa, I get it. There are people with expertise, but at least they're asking you to also make some proposals. What's wrong with that?
No, exactly. I told you that NAT, NAGRAT, and CCT together with TEU, we are going to put our documents together and get to the Ghana Education Service. I indicated that. So we need to make some corrections here. That to say that the health people, we are the best people to make that decision, we also we beg to differ. Because we believe that the health people, they are the people managing it. And we have all been told that this thing the science must guide us in taking decisions. So at this particular time, in the decision that we want to take, we cannot move forward without the input of our health workers.
So you want to move forward knowing the science as has been told us several times.
Exactly. And we have also, in fact, all the things he indicated, like the Veronica bucket, running water, soap, the classroom side, those were the things I raised, and he has ended up repeating the same thing.
Okay, I think it wasn't clear in terms of your response to the Ghana Education Service. I think we didn't talk about that. I guess that's why we are here. Yeah. So have you responded, or you are still in the process?
No, the teacher unions will meet. I've told you that. This is a matter that affects all teachers.
Yeah, but there's a deadline to the directive, isn't there?
That's tomorrow. Yes, we'll get back to them.
Okay,
because it was last week, and I traveled outside, and when I came, I came to meet the later. So we'll certainly get back to them. We have our own social dialogue system. Matters like this, we know how to discuss it. So we'll get back to them.
But you understand that the schools cannot be closed down forever.
Oh,
we can't be closed forever. We have to reopen.
Please, nobody has said that. You see, no teacher has said that the school should be closed down forever. No. When we will never say that. No teacher union, the unions will never say that, the teachers will not say that. The only thing that we are saying is that let us put the safety measures in place so that our children, our wives, our husbands will be safe. That is what we are asking for.
Okay.
That is all we are asking for. So all the protocols that can be put in place to ensure that each and everyone is safe must be done.
So you're contributing not with scientific knowledge, but you're going to say at least what you think in terms of a proposal forwarding to the Ghana Education Service.
We'll put some document together and let them have it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Peter, it's clear now, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't want to drag this issue. So I think that the teacher union should do well to present their concerns to the ministry as they have requested for the Ghana Education Service.
But Peter, just a real quick one. If you look at the tone of the letter, saying that if the president comes to lift the restrictions on the closure of schools, then they can resume. How soon could that be? I was thinking that we need a long vacation to plan for the next stage. We need at least some 2 months so that we can start a fresh academic calendar living with COVID-19. What do you think? Okay, I think there's a freeze there, but maybe Mr. Musa, real quick, you can comment on this. Because we're just entering into the period where we go for the long vacation.
Exactly. Yes. As it stands now, the Ghana Education Service deployed at least some kind of e-learning Okay, the virtual learning where they are reaching out to the students among others. The only challenge has to do with our brothers and our younger brothers and sisters who are in deprived areas. So their issues have come up. So the question is, how do we mitigate their situation? How do we reach out to them so that they will not be disadvantaged as a result of the COVID? Because if you're not able to do that, there is the high probability of increasing the issue of child labor. Because the people who stay in those areas, the moment education or the schools are closed down and the teachers are not there, the only option they have is for them to go back to the issues of child labor. And so everything must be done to ensure that to our brothers and sisters in deprived areas, giving opportunity to also have.
Were you consulted on how we should go about the e-learning as an association?
No. We were not consulted. We were not consulted.
So this was strictly a GES initiative, and then they went ahead.
Yes, we were not even invited.
Okay. All right, Peter. I don't know if you got the question that I asked you.
Hello.
Invited. Yes, Peter. Did you get the question about a long vacation so we can plan for a fresh academic calendar?
Yes, I think that would have been the best thing to do. But you see, we have a very strict academic calendar that we run that starts from the basic level and develops up to the tertiary institution. So if we are not careful, as we have stated already, if we are not careful, the academic calendar is already distorted, but it will be worse further. And that is what I think the Ghana Education Service want to avoid, because the tertiary institutions would need students the graduating students to be able to continue whatever plans that they also have. So there's been enough break, and I think that this thing should have even started long ago, the consultative process, because we knew that definitely there will be a time for schools to reopen. So I was thinking that this thing would have been started a long time before maybe we get to this time.
All right, Peter, let's see what the stakeholders present to the GS, and we can have conversations on the various strategies that is proposed. Peter Arenti is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. Mr. Thomas Musa is the General Secretary of NAT. We'll see what you forward, and then, we can analyze what you present to the Ghana Education Service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, stay with us. Now, your convenience and safety means a lot to us. Easy does it. Read all the news at home. No need to leave your home or office when the news is available to you on the go. Get on your device now and download Graphic News Plus from Google Play Store or App Store. Buy your e-copies of Daily Graphic, The Mirror, Graphic Business, Graphic Showbiz, Junior Graphic, Graphic Sports, as well as videos, free news, and so much more. That's the plus for you. You further enjoy 10% discounts on monthly subscription, 15% for 3 months subscription, and 20% discount for 6 months and beyond. Graphic News Plus, connecting people through news. We apologize, or we wish to apologize to our cherished audiences in the UK for their inability to access us through the TuneIn app as usual. We're available on, and you can also access our streams on Facebook, Android devices, Google Play Store, and Apple App Store as My Joy Online and Adom Online. Now, Zoomlion and the Ghana Police Service this morning disinfecting 124 police posts in the Western region. Let's join our correspondent Natalia Kwanzaa as she speaks to Alhaji Abdullah, who is the Western Regional Manager for Zoomlion. Natalia, good morning. Tell us what's been happening.
Yes, Mama V. So today is the regional launch of the disinfection exercise here in the Western region for the Ghana Police Service. This is in collaboration with Zoomlion Company. Right now we are the regional office of the Zoomlion Company here in the Western region. But I have with me here the Regional Director, Alhaji Abdullah Abdul. Hello, good morning, Alhaji.
Good morning.
Yes, tell us how many places are you disinfecting in the Western region?
Okay, thank you very much. In the Western region today, we'll be launching the project, and soon after the launch, we'll move into business. We'll do a few areas within the regional, the headquarters of Ghana Police Service at the Sekendi barracks. Then we'll be looking at 155 facilities of the Ghana Police Service in the 14 MMDAs. After the launch, we'll do some of the areas like their offices, their police cells, the MTTD, offices, and their barracks. We'll be looking at all that. And we'll be deploying about 800, staff who will be doing this exercise for us. Basically, we are going to use, a chlorine solution. The chlorine solution is a World Health Organization, approved disinfectant for the killing of viruses and germs. It is our hope that once all these surfaces of the police stations are tackled, if there's any infection, all the viruses and germs will go off by way of at least dying.
But what has informed this decision to disinfect police stations?
Yeah, you realize that we have disinfected some public institutions because we realize that the viruses can't stay on surfaces for hours, and for a public place, it's open to all. We did that for some public universities as well as private, and we realized that the police stations are also areas that a lot of people visit on a daily basis. In order to, curtail or to prevent the spread of COVID-19, we thought it wise to collaborate with the Ghana Police Service so we can also disinfect their facilities. Once people move in there frequently, if it is disinfected, the spread of the virus will minimize or will stop.
Okay, let's look at it. You are going to disinfect the place today. So does that mean that the police is not going to work today? When are they supposed to return back to their offices?
Yes, with the exercise we are going to carry out, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be using chlorine solution. Although chlorine solution is not a very poisonous substance. However, we will require that they stay off their facilities for a while before, after this, the project, then they can move in. We are giving them about a whole day to stay off, but it's recommended that after 3 hours, any facility that is being disinfected using chlorine solution can easily be reassessed. But we think that to be on a safer side, they should stay off today. They can work, under their sheds for now after the disinfection, so that at least in about a day they can move in to do full work.
Are you going to disinfect the Western North region?
Yes, the Western North region will also be equally disinfected. That will be after tomorrow. Yes, after tomorrow they will also be ready. They will be disinfected. Yeah, so it's covering a total of 23 MMDAs with Western North inclusive. Yeah.
Hello, Mama V. So you have the regional director there. In few hours, they are going to launch the regional disinfection exercise in collaboration with Zoom Lion and the Ghana Police Service.
That's Natalia Kwanzaa speaking there to Alhaji Abdullah, who is the Western Regional Manager of Zoom Lion. With that disinfection exercise to be undertaking at all police posts in the Western region, we'll bring you coverage of that exercise here on Joy News. So a lot of talking points from there as well. Does it mean they're not going to arrest anybody and put them behind the bars today? Well, the chemicals being used, we're told, is not dangerous. Well, we still have one more thing to do before we wrap up. Stay with us. You're watching the AM Show. Akoba joins us real quick. We're going to be hanging out with him fully tomorrow here on the show. But just, Akoba, I don't remember the last time you posted anybody on Twitter or Instagram.
Jara is here to help. From technology to fashion, you can find it all.
Okay, sorry there. We didn't hear you. You have to repeat.
Oh, okay.
I won't post still be also been post still.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can.
Okay. I guess the person that I have to post is not yet in. Because if the person is in, I would definitely post.
And you're posting me. But listen, you've been trending real hot, and I think it's just appreciation of your style of music.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Yeah,
we want to explore Post to Me fully on our show, but so when exactly did you release this?
That was just yesterday night, somewhere around 12 a.m. Sunday mid-morning. Yeah, I released Post to Me, and it's been everywhere since that time. I've been seeing it on Twitter and everywhere, and then people keep asking, why wouldn't I post my girlfriend or anything out there? And they keep asking, why should we post and stuff? And I'm like, you know what? Let me go into it for just a short time.
Yeah. Charlie, but you're giving pressure. You're giving pressure.
So I feel it's very simple. If you love somebody, why can't you post the person? There's two sides to the coin, actually. So I believe in privacy too, if you get it. And then, yeah, I believe that keeping your relationship private, you don't get people talking about it. Nobody would pose their nose into your relationships, which is fine. That's okay. But the other side of the coin is that people actually talk about everything in this world. Whatever you do, they're going to talk about it. Even Jesus Christ, they talked about him, they spoke about him bad and everything. So, one, if you love somebody and then people want to talk about it, if your love is true, why would you be bothered if people talk about it?
Yeah.
You get it? If the love we have is true and that we feel we're taking it to the next level or anything, why would we be bothered if some people talk about it?
So this is not you putting pressure on boys?
Yeah, it's not only boys, because some of the ladies, trust me, they think they're also doing it and they have enough of it. So it's everywhere. I mean, if you feel you love your boyfriend and then you know he's a person you really love, why wouldn't you post him?
Exactly.
And then the guys, they want him.
Pressure.
That's how come the guys think that, yeah, I'm just directing it to him. But yeah.
Pressure. Oh, my pressure off.
Okay, listen, I think, Akobo, we want to hang out with you again much longer than we've done this morning with you playing some acoustics. So let's agree. Are you going to play something and we can do some virtual concert?
That's fine. You know, when it comes to me, I mean, if you give me 2 hours, I'm okay.
Okay. We have a date this week.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Thanks for this brief hangout. Watch out for
thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Explore Akobo's new music, Post to Me. The video is fantastic. Amazing lyrics as well. Thank you all for hanging out with us on the AM show today. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye.
Bye.